Hi everyone, Selena here, and welcome back to Beyond Borders Teaching. On last week's episode, we dove into my why. Why did I come to the US to teach? How my experience has been as a teacher, and those types of stuff for you all to get to know a little bit more about me. In today's episode, I wanted to discuss transitioning from island life to the American classroom. I never imagined how different it would be teaching in my home country to that of teaching into the US. And it has definitely been a worthwhile and life changing experience that I have really gained a lot of knowledge, strengths, a lot of take homes, various ways in which I would have really benefited from this experience as a whole. So I just wanted to share more of that with you today. Now, I wanted to give a little bit more of my background information. I am from the beautiful twin island of Trinidad and Tobago, and life as a teacher there definitely has been wonderful for the 15 years I have taught there. Well, 12 before coming to the US. Within that time, I would have had the benefit, the pleasure of teaching many students. I taught every grade in elementary school. Well, they say elementary here in the US. In my country, they say primary school. So I've taught almost every grade except for standard 5. In the US, they would say 5th grade. And I can't say there's a grade I did not like teaching because I guess I'm kind of like a chameleon. I'm very adaptable, and I tend to like to face my challenges head on and just deal with it, get over it, be a fast learner, be very flexible, very adaptive. And I think because of that trait in my personality, it has helped me to be like that as well here with how quickly I was able to adapt to the US teaching as well. So there was a period of time when I had a different principal than I had before college. And every year he would put me in a different grade to teach, a different standard to teach. And at first it was kind of challenging because, as teachers, we like to master a level. So if you're a third grade teacher, you want to stay in that level because you know everything about that level. You want to continue to grow in that level. You already probably have lesson plans, resources, everything for that level. So you want to stay there, you want to plant roots there and grow. For me, I didn't have that opportunity. It seemed like every single year I was placed in a different grade to teach, a different standard to teach. And that was at first a bit challenging. And I always was like, why does this keep happening? Is it that he's not satisfied with my performance at that grade level? So he kept moving me. To which he said, no, he just thinks I'll be a great fit for this next level. And I really appreciate that even more so now. Because as I said, I guess it made me very flexible, very adaptable. I'm always willing to learn. And I think we should all be lifelong learners and not never fix ourselves into one box or to one level. So the school structure, of course, in my home country is much different than the US. Now, for the school structure, we're talking about like attendance. Attendance is a big deal, I'm guessing, around the world. It's important for the children to come to school. Our school day back at home would have started at 8:30. And in the US here, I go to school. I have to be present at school at 7:15, and my days end with the kids at 3 o'clock. They are missed at 2:30. However, with bus rider, car riders, walkers, they are all cleared out by 3 o'clock. So that was the experience there for the school structure in terms of the timing. Something that was shocking to me. Now, back in my home country, we would have an hour of lunch. And in the US, duty-free lunch is not something that is common. So we'd have an hour for lunch, and at that time, my closer friends, we would go buy lunch somewhere. Sometimes we'll go in the mall, have a drink, and come back. And teaching in the US definitely is not like that. We stay with the kids all day. Just that, of course, they have resources, which is another school structure thing that's different. They have various resources, so at that time, it's the only time we are not with the kids. But we take them to lunch. They have a short window to eat. For my school, it's 25 minutes. And straight from lunch, and everyone's schedule is a bit different, we take them for recess and we are with them throughout that whole time. At first, I didn't like it, but then in reflection, I think it is something good because back in my home country, sometimes you would leave for an hour at lunchtime, and I'm sure you all teachers in my home country, as well as I'm sure other countries who have duty-free lunch, could agree. When you come back from your lunch, the kids were on their own playing. There are complaints, different things happen. So me being with my kids all the time at lunch, recess, and then of course the teachers with them at resource time really keeps down problematic behaviors and keeps the children more in line because someone is always there with them, watching them, making sure that they are doing the right thing. That was something unique to me. The students' behavior overall, children will be children no matter what. So the behavior of kids, of course, you have kids who are generally well behaved, some kids with challenging behavior, but it's to be expected. Me personally, as a teacher, because I love kids, no matter whether they are well behaved or sometimes not well behaved, because I care so much for them, it is not something that I would judge them by or, be hard on them when they're having a moment. I always approach my kids with open communication, find out what's happening, so make sure that they can solve or resolve whatever is happening, and to also try to encourage for it not to happen again. The teacher-student relationship is one that I am proud of for me with my kids. Something we have learned in the US here. I did a restorative justice professional development course, and one of the things we looked at is doing circles. So circles are a way you can get to learn your kids. So in the morning, I do something that is called a temperature check with my kids, where I would ask them, I put up a chart, sometimes it's different faces on our clear touch, or that's something else as well. And they would have to say what temperature you are today. So they may have smiley faces ranging from happy, angry, sad, different emotions, and it has a number assigned to it, and the kids would say where are they at today. So it's a good way to build my relationship with them, because based on the number they choose, the emotion they choose, I know, okay, that's a child I may need to talk to. That's a child I may need to ask a question, find out what's happening, pull aside. And that also kind of helps me to know, okay, have expectations as to what type of response I can have from them in terms of doing their work or whatever it is in the day. So that's something we do here in the US. The teaching styles and expectations in Trinidad and Tobago is no different to anywhere around the world. We all want our kids to excel. We all want them to do well. We all want them to soar. We all want them to be college ready. We all want them to do great, to add value to society. So that expectation is definitely there. We care for our students and wanting them to achieve and not giving up on them. So that expectation was clear. The cultural norms in education is a very big topic. The cultural norms and the cultural practices in my classroom in Trinidad and Tobago versus here is somewhat similar, and of course there are some differences too. I'll tell you all more about that in another podcast. So everyone, I wanted to also use this moment to remind you all to like, follow, share, subscribe, leave a comment. It would really mean a lot to me. The next point I wanted to touch on is my first impressions of the American classroom. I would say it definitely was impressive. So in my Island Life classroom, we have our desk and we have the board. And a lot of our teaching is, as we like to say, chalk and talk. But of course, there's no more chalk in our classrooms back in my home country. There's the whiteboard and markers, and of course the desk. However, in the American classroom, there's a whiteboard as well as the markers. There's also a projector, and the main thing I use for my teaching is called a clear touch. And for those of you who may not know, it's like a big TV screen, and on it is where I do a lot of my teaching from. I show videos from it, I show worksheets from it. Well, not really worksheets, but I show different materials from it. I will show a worksheet, like if it is I want the kids to know this is the worksheet I want them to go on to after. Just wanted to clarify that. So that was something that stood out to me, that was quite impressive. The limitless resources that were available to me to use in the classroom in the process of my lesson. Another big thing that stood out to me in the classroom were the fact that we had to create something called small group areas. Now, in my country, I would say the type of teaching that is done is whole group. You teach all the kids, you then assign work, the kids do the work, and they bring it to you. Here in the US, however, we have the whole group teaching aspect, as well as then we have small group. As well, something that also to compare, in my home country, we teach the subjects separate in isolation. What does that mean? So we teach phonics, vocabulary, spelling, grammar, comprehension, creative writing. Let's say for ELA, English. And for math, well, if we are focusing on division, it's division, and subtraction or whatever, fractions, whatever, separate. However, here for ELA, it's taught as a block. So everything is intertwined into one. So that was different to me because I would say, from my years of experience, I really think I would have liked to kept that here, like how we would have teach in my home country, teach things separately. Keep the spelling separate, the phonics separate, and then yes, it comes together. However, I do like how it is done here as well, where things are taught, clustered together. So we would have our whole group teaching, teach whatever the standard is, whatever the content is to the class, and then we would break into small groups. I really love doing small group. At first, of course, it was new to me because this is not something I ever did before in my home country. However, I really love it because I really see the value in it. And then it made me think about how my kids may have been feeling and how I could have probably assisted them more if I did small group in my home country. So the small group is where we pull kids to work on whatever standard we would have taught. The standards are the guidelines of what we are teaching. So, for example, we're teaching main idea. There's a standard that goes with it. So I would pull the kids, group them, and then I might pull them 3 at a time, 4 at a time, and we work together in small group on that particular topic, on that particular standard, on that content. And as I say, I really see great benefit in that because you really get to know more of your kids, know what they understand, and know exactly from what you taught, what they have retained. As well as from that, you can gain insight to plan for future lessons. It's also an opportunity to differentiate for your learners. As we know as educators, we have different learners. They are all types of learners. So it also gives you an opportunity to do that. So that was something I really like that surprised me with the teaching and how it is done. For classroom management, it's the same as anywhere around the world. Of course, there are standards you would expect your students to listen, pay attention, be respectful. However, that is quite challenging. A lot of the kids could be fidgety sometimes. They're a little distracted. A lot of them like to draw during class time. And I'm sure it's the same around the world. Sometimes they just need a little more encouragement to keep focus. So to avoid from them getting distracted, sometimes within my lesson, I may do a brain break. Just a minute or two to put on something fun, educational, for them to hear something to just, give them back a little more energy into what we are doing. Or sometimes I might tell them, okay, class, we need to take a belly breath, to do some deep breathing, okay? And let's refocus on what we are doing. Or I will just make sure my class is very engaging. Something that is done as well a lot in the US classrooms are putting kids in small groups to do collaborative work. So my kids love that generally. So, I'll put them in various groups for them to work on a question, for them to work on a problem, for them to do different things, and then they will have to present what they did for the class. So that's something within the classroom that I really, really found was great because, again, in reflecting in my previous teaching before the US, is not something done. The kids will be given work, they do their work in their textbooks, they take down a formula, they take down a note from the board, and that was the teaching experience. And then, of course, they'll be tested at the end of the term. However, the kids are able to interact more here. They are more engaged, they are moving about, they are able to do collaborative pairs, learn from each other, they go on the board, solve things, which is also done home too. So those are some things I really liked and caused me to reflect on, especially the small group parts for my home country. The school policies are pretty straightforward. Of course, we set expectations. In my school, we follow something called the PBIS system. It's a system for positive behavior intervention systems. And we give the students points based on how they behave, based on how they travel through the corridors, based on their voice levels at the lunch table, based on how they behave during resource class, they get points. And of course, once there's a reward, kids tend to, buy more into it. So those are some of the things I liked within looking at the first impressions of the American classroom. So the other aspect of teaching in the US classroom, of course, there'd be challenges because everything was more or less new to me. So there's a lot of differences with cultural customs, classroom expectations, the way things are done, the structure, how the day runs, everything. I would say my personal biggest challenge was all the use of technology as well as the many resources that were available online to use in the classroom. So within my first month, I was bamboozled. I was learning so much new platforms that the kids have to use to be tested on, or something that's called Success Maker, which works with them at their independent learning levels for the subject of reading and math, learning how to test them on Mastery Tracker, how to upload tests, how to go on various platforms for them to do interactive activities. So all of those were challenging for me. Because there was so much new information in terms of the technological field of incorporating all these technology into the classroom, and the kids, each of them have a device for them to work on. Sometimes they take it for media, which is one of the resources, so that was new because where I'm from, technology is not that widespread and used in the classroom. I can remember at my old school, we had a computer lab which we'll go to sometimes, but that's about it. And then during the COVID period, the government tried to provide students with computers so that they could do classes at home. But after we came back into the classroom, we didn't continue with using those laptops in the classroom, which is something I think would have been good if it could be done, if it was done. Now, I haven't been home in the classroom in going on 3 years, so I don't know if it's being done now. I'll have to ask a friend, but I don't think it is. So that was something new for me. And then we had, many professional development courses to take, different things to do. It was a lot happening at once. So that was a big change to me, as well as the amount of support you get from administration. I must say I'm truly blessed to have been put in the school I was placed in here in the US. I had very supportive staff members. My administrators were very supportive, very kind. There was nothing that I had to feel foolish asking a question about because they were always willing to help. And even if I didn't ask, I always would see them. They would always come to my classroom to check on me, see how I am going, how are the kids, how's everything. As well as I had a teacher assistant who would be with me for a small group and sometimes throughout the day to help me with classroom management and that sorts of thing, seeing as it was my first year. As well as we in the US, we also have something called a instructional coach. So she's basically the teacher's teacher, in a sense, if you want to look at it like that. She is the person responsible for helping us with looking at the kids' data, because data drives results. So we look at their previous test scores, and again, back to we teach standards, based on the standards. And by the test scores, we are able to determine, okay, this child may not understand main idea, may not understand context clues, inference, may not understand fractions, may not understand operations and algebraic thinking. So we would look at that data and then we will plan accordingly for our small group, whether I will do small group with them or if the TA will have a particular group to work with. So that was something I really liked because it really presented an opportunity to differentiate, to meet those individual student needs, to really see where they are at so that you can help, support, and encourage them further. So that's something I really like. What I would say a challenge for me also was, of course, being my first year teaching in the US, I would have had an administrator, someone from the county, the instructional coach, persons would come to my classroom regularly to see me teach a lesson. I quickly kind of got over that fear because I am a person who always do my job. So after a while, I just, ignored, don't let it get me nervous, just continue teaching as you would normally teach. And even if you are not doing what they want to be done, or if it's something they don't like, guess what? You're going to get the feedback, and your feedback can help you improve your teaching. Because my number one goal here to come to the US to teach was for professional development. So there's nothing to fear. If there's something they will find I can modify, that's my opportunity to learn and do so. So I started to look at it from that perspective. So that helped me with going back to why I came here and why it is okay to look at it in that way. So that was also something different because in my home country, the curriculum support specialists, they may visit us occasionally, maybe once for the year. It's not regularly. You would see someone come into your classroom to see how you teach, see how the kids going and stuff. So that was something, at first it was challenging because it was a bit overwhelming. There was a time there were 5 persons in my class, but I got through and it was good. I would say, and in every challenge, my personal philosophy or belief is either you are going to sink or you're going to swim. The choice is yours. And even though I had challenges, especially my first year, of course, behaviors, learning to adapt to all the technology used in the classroom, all the various professional development courses I attended to learn what to do, as well as my sponsors. They also had an international teacher meeting, which would take place once every few months. And it also was an opportunity for them to find out how we are going as international teachers, as well as to provide support in any area we needed support. So I would say that was really meaningful, the amount of support that I would have gotten here, during this experience. A last challenge I wanted to share was that work-life balance. My first year, of course, being new to everything, was challenging to have that work-life balance. Because when I would leave school sometimes at 4, I've left school at 5 before, because everything was new, and my peer level teacher, we would stay back to plan lessons, to figure out the things that we are going to share in common, to grade for the students. So with all the newness, I was sometimes reaching home 4, 5 o'clock, was quite challenging. And of course, there's never enough hours in a day as a teacher to sit, correct work. So sometimes I'm taking home piles of paper throughout the week to correct, carry back to school. So that was a lot. However, I persevered. I quickly adapted, figured out ways to manage my time so that I won't have to do that in the next year. Also too, within my first year, we had to, of course, plan lessons, submit lesson plans. My principal, she liked lessons to be submitted 2 weeks in advance. So we're always planning lessons, submitting so that the principal is aware what we are going to teach. So I like that structure. So that was something that was also very time consuming. Now, you are given time to do these things, which is when the children go to resource. They go to resource typically for 40 minutes. So within that time, you are expected to plan correct work, as well as when we have something called the PLC I spoke about earlier, where we would also use that time to plan work. So I tried to develop a schedule in which I can make sure to fit in time within my workday so that I will be able to get things accomplished. So I would say within my second and third year, it was easier. Yes, sometimes I do work after working hours, but that's fine. I always try to make sure it's not something overwhelming. That is just something small I have to do for my kids. So that was definitely one of the challenge. And that was something I would say a bit different from back home. As teachers, of course, we always take home work, but that lesson planning part was a bit different. Now, of course, we all plan our lessons, we know what we're going to teach, but it just seemed like for me it was more strict, more rigid, that lessons have to be planned. My principal at the time, she also wanted slides that go with the lesson, which at first I found was going to be complicated, but I quickly adapted and I really enjoyed doing the slides. It kept me on track, it kept the kids on track, it kept them engaged, informed, it was colorful, it was presentable, helped with their learning, everything. So in the end, I enjoyed doing it. But I would say, since then, after my first year, things changed. In my second year, because I had the lesson plans, I was able to reuse them because they were using the same lessons and just change the dates, so it was easier. And now in my third year, the county has provided lesson plans. So they provided lesson plans for all the subject areas. You can just follow the lesson plans if you wish, or if you're not following the lesson plan, make sure that you are teaching something aligned to the standard that is suggested within that unit or for that day. So now lesson plans have been easier since it's provided, and then of course I will curtail my small group based on the needs of my kids or my students, my classroom, and that's pretty good too. Yeah. So before I close on this last point, I just want to remind you all to please like, follow, share, subscribe, leave a comment. I would really appreciate your support. Something I wanted to share last, something I wish I knew before starting, I would say never be afraid to ask for help, to ask for assistance. There's so many willing peers, so many willing persons within your school if you choose this job or this profession or teaching in the US who are willing to help you. I would say my instructional coach is amazing in every way. If I ask her anything and she doesn't know, she just doesn't say, I don't know, and leave it there. She makes sure to find the answer for me, and she dedicates her time to make sure I understand what I need to do or to help me in any way. And that's why I truly, truly love my school here in the US. I feel so supported as well as very motivated. My principal, my persons in administration may leave little short, kind notes as reminders or very thoughtful things they will do in the classroom. So be willing to embrace change. If you choose to do this, come with an open mind. Know that it would be challenging, but it is not possible. So tips for future teachers who is considering this move, I would say it is totally worth it for the professional growth, the gaining the new perspective, for the outpouring of love, for the growth in this profession, for everything. It really, really is truly worth it. And something I really, really like, they have Teacher Appreciation Week here as well in the American classroom. And for that week, the school organizes different things for the teachers. So at my school, we would have gotten massages, we got lunch, we had hot chocolate bar, we had different things, and it was really thoughtful and well done. Last year we had a 90s theme, so that was pretty cool. Every day was something, towards that 90s theme, and it was really interesting and fun, as well as the kids may also bring in gifts and stuff that week, and you truly, truly, truly feel appreciated. And something I'll also say, an encouraging word to end with, is it's an adjustment, but you are not alone. When I decided to make this change, it was pretty big for me because in my home country, I was a teacher as well as I was a baker. So I had to quit and 2 jobs before coming to the US. And for my Trinidadian and Tobagonians who are listening, especially, one of the things I had to do, I had to resign from my job. I was at the time, don't know if things have changed, but the Ministry of Education advised that I resign. So I had to resign, and it was going to be a big step, a big change, but I came with an open heart, open mind that this would work out for me, and it truly has. You're not alone, as I said before, because I have made so many friends. You're not alone because there are so many international teachers like you who are going through the experience, and even though sometimes it's challenging, never be afraid to lean on someone, because just what you're experiencing, they might be experiencing it too as a new international teacher. So in closing, I hope this message today have reached you in some way, have helped you with your thought process on teaching in the US, how it's different from other parts of the world, what are some commonalities, what are some differences. And if you are interested in making this move, feel free to reach out. You can send me a message, leave a comment, and I'm more than willing to give any advice you need. So a teaser for next week's episode, I will be talking about cultural shock in the classroom and adjusting to the new school system. I also want to know, leave a comment in the comments. Have you ever experienced a cultural shift at your work? Please tell us down below. Thanks again, everyone. This has been Beyond Borders Teaching. Please tune in weekly for our episodes. Thank you for tuning in, listening, and for all your likes, comments, subscribes, your shares. Thank you in advance.